that Ohio State got. I think we haven't talked about it.
No, we haven't. But what better way
Link,
to talk about it than right now as we're
yeah,
starting up right here. Guys, you get to hear how we start in these green rooms. But go ahead. Talk to me about this Ohio State quarterback, and then we're going to get into the live show.
yeah, no, Lincoln Keenholz, the 4-star quarterback they got in 2023
Mm-hmm.
in this class. He's 6'1.5", about 182ish pounds. Obviously, he's going to need to put on some weight, but I don't know if you've seen his stats from what he did in South Dakota. He was the #1 ranked player out there. This dude is a
Oh,
baller.
yeah. Yeah. I know
I was
exactly
like
what
I
you're
was like
talking about
hearing that like
now.
this kid, like, he has potential to be a Heisman. Like, he threw for over 13,000 yards,
It's dumb.
150 touchdowns. Like, I'm like, oh my god, how did this kid go under the radar? Like,
But you know what's crazy? Devin Brown, not saying the stats argument, but in terms of ability, Devin Brown, I thought flew way under the radar and then gets to Ohio State and you start hearing all these good things about him. But before we go too deep down the rabbit hole, everybody coming in, welcome. You all got to see a little bit different of a start today. This is usually how the green rooms are, as PG and I are swapping war stories, talking about recruits and talking about football. So it really doesn't stop. It goes from the green room to here. But PG, before we get started today, I mean, we've got a lot to talk about. Coaching hires. We need to talk about winners and losers of the offseason. We need to talk about some recruiting news. Before we get into all of that, tell the people where they can find you. And then, you put out something last night that is really interesting. I think they need to know about that as well. So as soon as this ends, they can go check that out.
yeah, y'all can find me the PG Show, all one word, on Google, Apple, Spotify, on the podcast networks, or on YouTube. In terms of what Ty is talking about, actually put out 3 videos last night that I think everybody should check out. The first one is talking about Deion Sanders and Brent Venables. We're finally getting to see that first battle for OU in Colorado in the 5-star defensive lineman Williams Nwaneri. People who don't know this, Williams Nwaneri is from Lee Summit North. He's probably one of the biggest defensive tackle or defensive linemen in this class. He's going to be highly coveted. Interestingly enough, not being heavily recruited by Alabama. So I don't know if you have any takes on that one. I'd love to hear that one. But we also talked about Jaden Rashada signing with Arizona State. Arizona State has not recruited their state very well at all. And I say this because Arizona State has had a ton of 4- and 5-star talent that has gone on to do big things that they're completely whiffing on, not even getting guys in the top 500. So we talk about that. And then also, we had an interview with Jordan Dominic, and I mean, we talked about everything, whether it was talking about anime. Apparently, this is something big with college football players now. They love anime. We also talked about the Heisman Trophy. Jordan Dominic talked a lot about how Will Anderson was just dominant and how he felt like Will Anderson was snubbed in 2021 when he should have won the Heisman, or at least been in serious consideration for it. We talked about how to restructure that and everything, and then talked about what's going on at Colorado, why he chose to go play for Coach Prime and join that program out there. So good content there. I think we're working on some other stuff in the background, but yeah, that's what we got going on.
Yeah, that was a ton of fun, man. And one of the things we were talking about in our group chat, specifically about Will Anderson, whenever you text me that, I was like, Dominic, it's interesting coming from him because, to quote the Boondocks, one of my favorite shows ever, game recognize game. And Dominic is a dude. Like, he put together solid stats at Georgia Tech and then boomed at Arkansas last year. A ton of quarterback pressures to go along with an impressive stat line. But I want to focus on the quarterback pressures because he really put it on opposing quarterbacks. That's what we were talking about in our group chat. I was like, Anderson's stat numbers, they're impressive, but it's his QB pressures that are just wild. But speaking about Alabama and the defense, they made a move yesterday, hiring Miami defensive coordinator Kevin Steele. Now, when you go to social media, like with all things, especially on Twitter, we know what a reliable place for information Twitter is. You're going to get vastly opposing viewpoints. So, for those of you that didn't see the video today, I was curious about Kevin Steele, who he was. So, we all know that whenever he was the defensive coordinator at Auburn, put together some really solid defenses with Auburn. Outside of that, it's been a little bit of inconsistent. We look at his time with Clemson. He got in there. It was the 25th defense in the nation his first year, 13th his second year, and then they really dropped the third year to like 81st, which is not what you want to see. With LSU, they were, I think, 32nd in the nation. He was only there 1 year. Tough to draw really reasonable conclusions from that when someone's only there a year. It's tough to really get a representation. What I will say, 32 isn't abysmal, but it's not where you want to be if you're LSU. It's not where you expect to be. And with Miami, PG, this is where it got really interesting. The Miami defense was 68th in scoring defense this year. So not great, not good, not good. But whenever I looked the year before, they were 86th in the nation in scoring defense. So the defense actually improved under Kevin Steele. Now, this is where this gets really fascinating. Miami's offense in 2021 was a top 30 unit in the nation. This year, they were like 95th in the nation. It did not make sense to me that the defense would have improved over 20 positions while the offense fell off a cliff. And I began to formulate a hypothesis that Miami's offense had really let down their defense. Now, I'm not saying this to absolve Kevin Steele. We have a lot of data on Kevin Steele outside of Miami. I'm just speaking about Miami specifically. I looked at the games where they were able to, I looked at the games where opponents got over 40 points on them. Every single game but one, they massively lost the time of production or possession. Furthermore, every single game but one, they did not have a 100-yard rusher. So this is an interesting hire for Alabama. Now I'm going to go ahead and talk about the long term of this. Kevin Steele has experience with Nick Saban. He was with Nick Saban in 2008 and 2007 with Alabama, and then once again in 2013, 2014 with Alabama. He's got familiarity with what Nick Saban wants. He's got familiarity with the program, and he's got familiarity with the culture Nick Saban wants. He's also got a lot of experience in big-time recruiting grounds. We're talking Texas, we're talking South Carolina, Florida, Louisiana, and the state of Alabama. I think the thing that's so compelling here and the question people are going to be asking is, what does this mean for Jeremy Pruitt? That was the guy that I had thought it was, and lo and behold, it looks like it's Kevin Steele. Now, I don't know how official it is, but there are several reports, Sports Illustrated put one out earlier, that Jeremy Pruitt apparently was consulted about the Kevin Steele hire, recommended Kevin Steele, and I think we could expect some news on the Jeremy Pruitt front here soon. Now, PG, I just gave my long-winded rationalization of Kevin Steele. From an outsider looking in, what was your thoughts whenever you saw Steele be added to this Alabama staff?
Yeah, so I thought it was an interesting hire because I had heard the name before, but really hadn't looked into it. And let's be honest, this man has been everywhere. Tennessee, New Mexico State, Oklahoma State, Nebraska, in the NFL with Carolina Panthers, Baylor, Florida State, Alabama, Clemson, which I thought was pretty interesting. Then Alabama again, LSU, Auburn, and then Miami, and then back at Alabama. So Alabama just seems to be Alabama and Auburn seem to be good homes for him. And I believe at Auburn in 2020, he was the interim head coach.
Indeed.
And he was also an interim head coach at Tennessee. So he's
for only like a month
that role.
He wasn't there long. Yeah.
He can really do it all. You've seen him coach at a lot of positions. I think having some of that NFL coaching history, that I think helps a little bit on the recruiting trail. When you go look at his recruiting history, it's not like he's landed just he's not a Tim Brewster on the recruiting trail, to say the least.
Fair.
But
that's fair.
He has landed a 5-star offensive tackle before, and outside of that, he's landed some top 100 defensive talent across the ball. So when you look at it as a recruiting perspective to pair with Nick Saban, I don't feel like you're necessarily losing anything from Pete Golding to Kevin Steele. Actually, you might be gaining something just because Kevin Steele, again, he has NFL background, and I think that maybe appeals to a lot of these athletes because he knows what it takes to get that player ready for the next level. And, having the ability to get ready in college, I think is huge. So I like the hire. Ultimately, though, I really think, if you guys can ultimately get Pruitt in the long run, that's got to be the prize trophy right there.
I completely. If we come out of this with Pruitt as an analyst, just kind of waiting until all of this stuff with the NCAA blows over, this all of a sudden people look at this with a different optic, right? Right now, there's a lot of people questioning it, and look, I understand, and that's why when I did my video, I tried to be as objective as possible, and I wanted to give all of his numbers. I wanted to give the good, the bad, and then I wanted to give my explanation for why I thought Miami didn't go the way a lot of people wanted. And I think there are several explanations. Obviously, mine is an oversimplification, but One of the reasons is it's tough, man. It's so tough if your offense is losing the time of possession battle. PG, you want to hear something wild, man? Just wild. So whenever I looked at the Clemson game, at the end of the Clemson game, Clemson had possessed the ball for 38 minutes to Miami's 21. Miami didn't even have 100 yards offense in that game. So when I'm looking at your defense and you're not you're a middle of the pack defense out of 131 teams, they came in at 68th, and your offense is giving you that sort of production to work with. It's a simple numbers game, guys. I'm not saying that if they would have had a top 20 offense, this would have been a great defense. Not my contention. They still would have had a lot of problems, but it's about opportunity. If I give my defense 100 chances to be scored on, they're probably going to get scored on more than the defense that only has 50 chances to get scored on. So that's what we have to watch now moving forward. Now, obviously, there was a decommitment for Alabama, tight end decommitting, revisiting his commitment plans. Not super surprised about that. It's early in the 2024 cycle. If you're going to have decommitments, let's have them now where we can build moving forward. And one thing we know about Alabama recruiting, for whatever reason, it started slow in the first few months and then it just picks up. I think a few years ago, they were like 70th in April and then finished with a number 2 class. So I'm interested. Now, I do want to get your thoughts on the offensive coordinator hire as well, because I'm not going to lie, PG, you might have to talk me off the ledge on this one. The more I watch of Notre Dame, the more I'm buying into the Tommy Rees hire. I know, I'm going to get people chucking tomatoes, but I'm starting to buy in. What are you thinking?
No, I'm right there with you, actually. I think it's a decent hire. One thing that I pointed out, is he likes to run some of that spread offense. And I think that's going to be – here's the deal. At Notre Dame, he's not getting top-tier quarterback and wide receiver and running back talent. He's going to get that at Alabama. And so I look at the little that he's done as an offensive coordinator and go, okay, he's probably going to improve on that by 100 yards a game a year. So I would say if he was at 394, 391, whatever it was this past season, I'd say about 500 yards would be an exceptional improvement for him as an offensive coordinator. And at that point for Alabama, I mean, you've still got one of the best offenses in the country at that point.
I'd be very happy with it. Yeah.
He's young, so he's easily relatable to the kids on the recruiting trail. I think that's a big thing because especially when you get to some of the older guys, they don't adapt to the Twitters and everything else. And so it's important to have somebody there that can relate to the kids. He tried to make it to the NFL, so he knows what not to do with these kids to make sure that they're prepared. Again, I think something that's appealing. So actually, I'm right there with you. I think this is listen, if it hits, Nick Saban's going to look like a genius. If it misses, he can just punt it off as not one of his better judgments. But who's really going to get mad at Nick Saban?
Look, people will get mad at him, but you're right. Should they get mad at him? Right? People get mad at people all the time. The question is your rage reasonable? And if the answer is no, well then, okay, you can be mad, but that doesn't impact me, right? And I think you hit the nail on the head. One of the things with Rees I really like is one of these days, man, we're going to have to sit down and I'll play that Clemson game. And I really want you to sit. He kept Clemson so off balance, switching it up between 11 personnel and 12 personnel that by the time Clemson had dialed into one, he hit them with the other. The thing I liked so much what I was watching, his route layering concepts, I'm interested. I'm peaked. Now, he's a very power run heavy offense. And that's how he bases a lot of his explosiveness out of that offense is a power attack with the Russian tight end play. Look, I'm very excited about this. Did want to hit some comments real quick. We had, where are you, Keaton? You said long day at work, hour drive home. Glad I got to tune in. Glad you're here, man. Glad you're here. Hope you enjoy the show. Hank asks, is Steele a placeholder like I think Roof is? I believe so. Now I don't know Roof. Look, the Roof one is different. Because Roof, even though I've had my questions about Roof, Hank, one thing I've always admitted, Roof is very valuable in terms of transition. Brent is still learning how to be a head coach, and Ted Roof is someone with so much football experience. he is valuable in that room right now. He allows Brent to focus on the big picture stuff. And even if I have my qualms at times, he's so experienced. He's someone that Brent trusts. And that right now for OU is integral. I mean, key. And so I think it is a little bit different. It's a little bit different, but I think your logic is 100% on. Rusty says, "Sup, Boomer? Happy you're here, Rusty. I'm sure PG appreciates the Boomer."
I will say this though to the roof comments. I don't really think you're going to go out there and get a coordinator that can run a defense like Brent Venables right away.
No,
Whoever
it's
you
a
bring in,
handful,
they're
not many.
going to have to be given a couple years to learn the scheme effectively. And then it might be still 5 years before they can run that defense like Brent Venables did. I mean, you got to remember, Brent Venables has been a coordinator his whole life. So I think people need to slow down. I don't know if Roof
Sure.
is the defensive coordinator for Oklahoma very much longer. He might move back to a linebacker coach or analyst role, which I mean, I think would be, okay. But I think OU fans need to chill on the Roof thing. I don't think they realize how hard it is for somebody to actually call this defense for Venables.
That's a really good point. Because you and I have had our discussions on it, but this is a very good point and something that I think we're going to talk about a little bit more when it comes to OU. So I do want to put a little bit of a pin in it, but that's not an easy defense. That is not an easy defense. I was talking to you guys one day behind the green screen about the similarities between the Venables scheme and the Saban scheme, to where really in some of these different concepts, specifically your cover 3 concepts, the only difference is the title, what they actually call it. Outside of that, the actual schematics are very similar. And PG, what did we just see Saban do? He hired a guy that comes from his system, completely reinforcing your point that when you're talking about these intricate defenses, yes, it's simple to say, hey, let's go hire a different defensive coordinator. Can he run this defense? That's not a defense you're just seeing every day. That is a really, really good point. And then there's the Cheetah versus Star. There is some slight differences, Bomb, between Cheetah and Star, but yes, you're 100% correct. Like the basic theory behind them are very similar. The theory behind Venables and Saban's defense is almost the same. They just take 2 different routes to get to the same place, if that makes sense. But the base path is very similar. They just kind of go about it a little bit different. It's really interesting when you start diving into it. But here's what I will say. And Robert has a great point here. Tommy played the quarterback position. PG, you talked about this. One of the things I noticed, and I won't share my notes on the screen from when I was watching the live stream because I try and keep this to be a family show. But wow. Wow. Guys, there's a bit of a reason why Notre Dame at the end of the year went out and got Sam Hartman. That quarterback room left a lot to be desired. A lot to be desired. Now, once again, like I said for Kevin Steele, am I saying that with good quarterback play, this is a slam dunk hire? Not my contention. I'm just saying the quarterback play left a lot to be desired. And I am intrigued because I love our tight end room. I love the talent that's in there, I should say. So as far as Alabama is concerned, I know a lot of fans are up in arms, even outside the Crimson Tide. They're curious about this. I'm going to quote Aaron Rodgers here. RELAX. PG, you said it perfectly here a bit ago. We got to trust Nick Saban. He's earned the trust, and I do think there is a greater plan here with Jeremy Pruitt involved in the defense. Now, I want to talk about, some Oklahoma stuff. Because PG, y'all have got some excitement coming into next year. I made a video this week, and I want to get your reaction from this. I was talking about a playmaker on Oklahoma's offense, specifically the wide receiver room, that I thought was set to boom next year. Now, of course, we can talk about Nick Anderson. We can talk about Jaden Gibson. Both are very good answers, but I picked Farouk. You and I have talked about this off camera several times. That guy right there, I think he's in for a big year. What are you really excited for on that Oklahoma offense going into year 2 with Brent Venables?
Are we just talking about the guys that are there, or are we talking about guys that are
No,
coming in?
free reign, my man, free reign.
So Actually, this is going to be a shock to a lot of people. I think somebody that a lot of people are going to need to get familiar with in terms of the name is a guy named Brandon Harper. He's a wide
Okay.
receiver out of Noble, Oklahoma. He got a preferred walk-on. Now,
Yeah. I know exactly who
he
you're
was
talking about.
Oklahoma was his dream school. And if you follow any Oklahoma fans on Twitter, or they absolutely love this kid. But I think this kid has true potential talent in the first year to be seen on special teams and maybe in some garbage time, get some good looks at the wide receiver. I think going into year two, this kid could really be contending for a starting wide receiver role. Here's the deal, and the Brandon over on 247 put it perfectly during their live stream the other day. When you bring on these preferred walk-ons from in-state, it does nothing but drive competition in that locker room, because a lot of the time these kids grew up loving this school. This is the school they wanted to play for, and so they want to earn that starting spot. They want to knock another guy off, and I think Brandon Harper has that potential possibility to go out there and do that. And so I really like him in terms of a PWO on this team next season. I really like Sammy Omosigo on the linebacker position for Oklahoma. I don't think people realize how good this linebacker core for Oklahoma was in this class. But it's kind of sticking to the offensive side of the ball, because I know I'm getting excited about the defense, because we haven't seen the defensive side of the class for Oklahoma like this
In a while.
so long. But yeah, I mean, Farouk's a great choice. I definitely think I definitely think it's the blanket choice, because you lose Marvin Mims and it's like, who do you turn to? Like, there's no replacing Marvin Mims in that wide receiver room.
Well,
And
even
that's
look
why
how they used him with Marvin Mims there. I mean, it was obvious that
yeah.
how much they thought of this kid.
Well, Farouk's more, I think, you've heard a lot of comparisons with him about Debo Samuel and to that usage, and I think that's a fair comparison. You also have Drake Stoops and Austin Stogner, which Austin Stogner being back in this offense, I think, is bigger than what people realize. Because when Austin Stogner was here at Oklahoma, that was huge. That was huge. So I don't think people realize that is probably one of the most underrated takes out of the transfer portal this season.
Yes, and I think arguably, when we look at Oklahoma, it's arguably one of the biggest additions for the Sooners. I mean, look, this is someone who we can talk about. Oh, well, he was there with a different coaching staff. There were different faces. He knows Oklahoma. He knows Oklahoma. That means something. And guys, let's be candid. What a story. I mean, what a story in college football, and now it gets to end where it began. I mean, that's awesome. Isn't that why we're all fans of this game?
Yeah.
Great example.
Oklahoma probably had two of the best transfer portal takes, and they will go unnoticed. Stogner, and then you have at the left tackle position, Walter Rouse from Stanford.
That was a really good one. A lot of experience.
39 starts in 40 games.
Yep. A lot of experience there.
With Dylan Gabriel being a left-handed quarterback, you're losing two of your left offensive guard and your left offensive tackle. Like, that was a huge grab. And you got Caleb Schaefer at the guard position. So your left side of the offensive line, which we thought was going to be the weakest part of the offensive line for Oklahoma, might now be the strongest part of the offensive line for OU. So yeah, I mean, Oklahoma probably had two of the best takes in the transfer portal, and like I said, they're going to go unnoticed. But yeah, it's OU's got to buckle up, because it's going to be a fun season.
Sport Geek says Stanford wasn't good. No, Sport, you're right. They weren't good, but that's also on 21 other people other than Walter Roos. And he's got a lot of positive experience. That's going to be a big addition for the Oklahoma Sooners. But you're 100% right. I mean, when we talk about a team that's really just had a down little period, Stanford, man, I felt like when we were in high school, you always expected a certain level out of Stanford, and they just haven't been there for a while.
So I think I texted you about it not too long ago.
Yeah, we were talking about it.
Well, what year was that? Was it 2017 or 2018 that they had just that? I mean, they had gotten 3 5-star recruits.
Yeah, and it's just,
and it's like what have they become since then?
Yeah, it's kind of teetered off, and that's something we also need to look forward to whenever we're talking about winners and losers of this offseason. Now, you have a lot of excitement towards the defense, PG, and absolutely, floor is yours. I want to know where you're excited there. I do want to hit one comment before I give you that. Austin said he disagreed, saying people saying Texas will get blown out in Tuscaloosa. I don't think Texas is going to get blown out. It's going to be a great game, Austin. I can't wait. But I don't see either team blowing out the other in that game. Personally, I just don't. But it's going Bama, Texas into 100% Jeremy. That's going to be such a fun game. It's going to be awesome. I will let you answer this one, PG, and then go into who you're really looking forward to on this defensive side of the ball.
Oh, I love this question. It makes me laugh all the time. Do you want to risk putting the Ferrari out there and getting totaled in the first 12 games, or would you rather let him sit, let him develop behind a tenured quarterback in the system? But mind you, a quarterback that, if he wouldn't have gotten hurt, probably would have thrown for 3,400 yards this season.
What was he
I don't
at?
know.
I
think
don't
he
think
threw
he was far
3,000,
off.
so 3,400 yards, I don't think would have been out of this realm of possibility. And a quarterback that doesn't turn the ball over a whole lot. And, I think a lot of people forget you lost Kel Gundy, which I think hurt the wide receivers. It definitely didn't help them. And then, Gabriel was shaking off a lot of rust from that left clavicle fracture and everything else. So Gabriel starts. Now, if Gabriel has a bad start to the season, like we're talking a bad 3 games, I could see Jackson Arnold stepping in by that Texas game, kind of like what we've seen in the past. But I don't think it's right to start your true freshman quarterback, and throw him right into the fire right away, especially against. I would say the first 3 games are going to be easy, but after that, you're going to Cincinnati. That's going to be a hostile environment. Then you've got Iowa State, who they play exceptional defense. And then you got to go to Texas. And if you put out Jackson Arnold against Texas as the starting quarterback, they're going to go out there and try. They're going to try to knock him on his butt. You don't want that. So Dylan Gabriel is going to be a starter, and I don't think fans should question it. I really don't, because I think Dylan Gabriel next season, he's going to be kind of similar to this season. He's going to go out there and he's probably going to go throw silently 3,400 yards, probably only throw under 5 interceptions, and probably throw for, 30 touchdowns. You think that's out of the...
I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility at all.
Dylan Gabriel might be a Heisman Trophy candidate. Like we were talking about that last season. And you know what? If he would have been able to shake off the rust and not get hurt, he definitely probably could have won it. I think with Dylan Gabriel,
that might be tough this season because of the quarterbacks he's going to have to go up against, like a Caleb Williams or a Drake May. But I do not disagree with you at all about the 5 interceptions, 30 touchdowns. I mean, he was a wink away from that this season.
Oh, he was a wink away from not throwing a single pick if it wasn't for a lot of these tips. I mean, there were only 2 interceptions this season. I was like, dude, you threw some bad. Like, that was a bad pass. But like all the other interceptions, they were just bobbled by the wide receivers.
Or one of them, I think, was actually batted at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
100%.
So, the other thing is, too, with having Jackson Arnold back there, I think you're going to see him take a lot of the garbage time snaps. Also, I think Davis Bevel and General Booty will be a lot better this year because they'll have a whole year in the system. They'll know the offense, so they'll be great backups if we need it. But I think they'll be a little bit more dangerous with Dylan Gabriel because they won't be afraid if he gets hurt, we're screwed, because you have other quarterbacks back there.
But I love this comment by Austin. I think you hit the nail on the head. I think DG will make Arnold better, but by extension, Arnold will make DG better. I love this comment right here. I think that's great.
So, yeah.
But talk to me about your defense, because you were ready to go and you were mentioning that defense. So go ahead and cook.
Yeah, I was ready. So we'll talk about current players that are there. So you have I think some players that are we talked about Ethan Downs having a breakout season last year, and I really think he started to put it together towards the end of the season. But talking to a lot of the defensive ends at Oklahoma, you've kind of heard that like it was just they would get there a half a second too late. And I think a lot of that comes down to the strength and conditioning. I'm not saying Schmitty didn't do it right. I think he did do it right. But the problem is, if you notice, any program that Schmitty goes to, it always takes a season under the belt for him to really get these guys into shape. And so I think next year you're going to see Ethan Downs, Jonah Laulu, those 2 guys specifically, be a lot more explosive off the edge. I think we all just got way too excited for this staff to return last year and put way too many expectations on these kids. In terms, I think you're going to see. I hope we see Reggie Grimes slide inside. I think he'll be a better inside defensive lineman than on the edge. I think that interior defensive line could actually be really good because you have Derek LeBlanc, who he's already enrolled. He's already on campus. If he puts on 20 pounds, I think that's a guy that could instantly come in and start for you. You've got PJ Adebore on the edge as well. I think he'll probably see some fair amount of snaps during the season. But I really like what Oklahoma has at the linebacker position because you've got Samuel Omosigo and Lewis Carter. Those are two potential future cheetah position players. And I think Samuel Omosigo is probably the clear cut, but Lewis Carter could definitely contend for that spot. You've also got Kobe McKenzie, Kip Lewis, who were there last year. They just didn't get to play because, they got to put on the weight.
Kanik.
They got to learn the defense. Yeah, and you talk about Jaron Kanik, too, who a lot of Oklahoma players really love, and I know you love Jaron Kanik as well.
Oh, yeah.
And then you've got Danny Stutzman returning. So this linebacker room, I think, is going to be a lot better than what it was last year. It hurts losing David Agwebu, which I know a lot of OU fans will disagree with me on that. But listen, I will fight you any day. David Agwebu was a really great linebacker for Oklahoma, just in the wrong position.
Yes, that, and I'm not going to go into a ton of detail, but PG, you can back me up here. Before I do this, I need to hit this. Wesley Weeks, thank you for the $5. He says, I feel like Pruitt will be hired in the vacant analyst spot sooner or later when y'all finish talking OU. If you'll comment, hey, brother, we'll comment on that right now. I think you're 100% right. I think you are right on the money. And I'm going to give you a few reasons why, Wesley, and you probably already know them, but it excites me. First and foremost, we went a long time with hearing a whole lot about the offensive coordinator search for Alabama, but hearing nothing about the defensive coordinator search for Alabama. Now, what that told me is that Nick knows exactly who he wants and he's waiting on something. Well, process of elimination dictates what he's waiting on is the NCAA, and who he is waiting on is Jeremy Pruitt. I think they realized that could take a long time. And I think they realized, personally, all personal here, no information, my opinion. I think they realized that why don't we hire someone who has a familiarity with him? And now all of a sudden you see the reports come out that Jeremy Pruitt was consulted about this hire, that he said, hey, Kevin Steele is a good dude. I've worked with him twice. I have a great friendship with him. I think you hit the nail on the head. I think right now, Saban is literally playing 4D chess and everybody thinks he's playing checkers. I think Jeremy Pruitt's going to come in to an analyst role. Robert,
no, Pruitt's not going to Oklahoma.
No. Let me have this, Robert. let me have this, please. Goodness gracious. Yeah. But go ahead, PG.
No, so Drew talks about it in the chat. Losing Deshaun White's big. The only differences between Deshaun White and David Agwebu could have returned. Deshaun White was too old. He had to go to the draft. And I'm excited to see where Deshaun White's going to land. I'm excited to see where a lot of these Sooner players land. But when you look at the secondary for Oklahoma this year, I've said it multiple times. There are two rooms that you just feel really confident in for Oklahoma. It's the running back room on the offensive side of the ball, and it's the secondary for OU. When was the last time you talked about the secondary for OU potentially being the best room on that team?
That's a great point. I will
wait. You're talking, you've got the 5-star Peyton Bowen, who I would assume we're probably going to see a little bit this season. You've got Billy Bowman, who, if he has a really good season, Bowman could be a first-round draft pick, but I think he's definitely a first 3-rounder for sure.
I like him. 1 through 3, easy. Yeah. I like that.
You talk about the JUCO Kendall Dolby. You talk about
great addition, great kid too.
Yeah. You have Woody Washington returning. I look at what Oklahoma was returning and what they have now. Listen, I love it. I'm excited for that Texas game. I'm excited to see them put out Arch Manning against his Oklahoma secondary.
Well, hey, so you're calling your shot now that you think it's going to be Arch trotting out there.
Well, so I think it'll be Quinn Ewers to start the season, but I definitely think if he starts to have a bad game in that Alabama game, Sark's going to be pressured to put in
interesting.
Archie. However, I will state this because I like to state this every time we talk about Texas quarterbacks. Their best quarterback probably will not play a snap of ball at Texas.
Yeah, you're really high on Malik Murphy. He's a
I'm really
very
high on
talented
Malik Murphy.
individual. There's no questioning. He's a very talented individual. Wesley, thanks again for the $5, but I think you've hit the nail on the head. Jeremy Pruitt will be an analyst. It's just a matter of when. Now, I do agree with what you said about Peyton Bowen, but I do want to kind of go back a little bit. You talked about Aguebu, and you can confirm this. I'm not going to get into the details a ton, but I broke down for you. I mean, it was right when we started doing content together. We came in here on a Saturday one day, and I had one of y'all's games playing, the All 22. I pointed some stuff out. Aguebu gets a lot of blame for stuff that's not his fault. And you remember I was pointing it out to you that this is intricate stuff. The easy solution is people are going to look and say, hey, it's on him. It's not. It was not on him. There was a series of this defense is complicated. And I'm going to say this again. Oklahoma went from a defense whose basic theory was let's simplify everything so we can play fast to a defense where it's, hey, let's see how pro style we can get. To where if one person messes up, I've said, how many times, PG, have I told you this? Bama's defense is so interesting because you'll see someone running wide open down this field and you're like, how in the hell did he get that wide open? Well, it's because half the time, if you're going to beat Bama's defense, it's going to be on a bust, right? Like Georgia's defense is a great example of this. They play such pro style schemes. A lot of the times when there's a bust, it's because there was miscommunication. Kirby's in the house. What's next year or Kirby through? Oh, that's a good one, Kirby.
I'd say Saban wins the title because here's the thing. It's really hard to go back to back. It's almost impossible to three-peat because even though they're young, the players are young, you got to remember, these guys will have at that point played 32 games. And then they're going to have to go play a whole season. So let's say they get to the championship. That's 48 games. You really don't see, and you, especially in basketball, you see this, but it's the same thing in football. You do not see the health of players stand up when they're having to play that many games to three-peat. It just doesn't happen. It's a very, if this Georgia team three-peats, we could be talking about one of the best teams we've ever seen.
Well, it'd be one of the best runs we've ever seen. And there's no question about that. No question about that. That's a great question, Kirby. I'm saying Kirby because I'm so used to his old name, Kirby's Visor. It's back-to-back Visor now. This is...
The question is, who's at quarterback for him?
I'm going to go with Saban wins a title next year. One, because I'm a little biased. Two, because you've gone back-to-back, Kirby. And dang it, as a competitor, I'm like, okay, Bama needs to do something about that. But genuinely, I think PG hit the nail on the head. It's going to be very difficult to three-peat. However, let's also look at this from the other side of the coin. Georgia recruits at an unbelievable level. They may retain a lot of their staff. There's a lot of talent on that roster. Even though I don't know who the quarterback will be, there's probably someone good on that roster that will play quarterback for them. We got people saying Carson Beck. Carson Beck is... Whatever happened to Brock Vandegrift?
Well, he's still on there, and I think, here's my deal. And I was talking to, I think was it Jay about this? It was either Jay or Drew about this the other day. And my thing is, I don't feel like Kirby Smart is great at evaluating their quarterback talent. I mean, hint Justin Fields. So you never know. Like, Brock Vandegrift could still be that dude, but
in fairness, he got it done with Stetson Bennett. So
I mean that is true, but he also picked Stetson Bennett over Justin Fields.
You mean Jake Fromm?
Jake Fromm, yeah, Jake Fromm. I mean, I don't know. I'm leery on their quarterback room. I still think Brock Vandegrift, because we haven't seen him. I know people say he's terrible. I don't know how we know that because we haven't seen him play a really hard game. And when you look at Georgia's schedule, I mean, it's lined up for them to go back to the college football playoffs. I mean, they have to play South Carolina at home. They have to play Kentucky at home. Their toughest games are at Tennessee. That's probably a game that they lose. Like if you got to point one game on their schedule they had to lose, that's probably it. Other than that, they have to go to Auburn and Florida, which I don't expect Florida to be very good next year. So, yeah, Tennessee is the game. I mean, when I look at the schedule for them to lose, that's it. But they got Ole Miss at home, Missouri at home, Kentucky
it's
at
a very
home,
favorable schedule.
South Carolina home. Y'all got because they don't have Oklahoma on the schedule anymore. And I'm not saying Oklahoma would have beat them, but Oklahoma would have beat them up a little bit. I mean, it definitely would have been a tougher game than Ball State, UT Martin, or
would have been
UAB.
a tougher game than Ball State. Yes, no question.
Any three of those teams, it would have been tougher. I mean,
look. UGA has a very favorable path, which makes this such a tough question. They have everything set up to do it, but like as simple as it might seem for me to be like the answer is Georgia, we also have to realize the implications of what we're talking about, the rarity of what we're talking about, and that does mean something. It does mean something. Mr. Morris says, roll Tide, roll. Absolutely.
I think it's going to be Bama, though, because Bama has a tougher schedule, and I think that means they're going to be tested early. I mean, you got to play a Texas team at home. Luckily, it's at home. And so
yeah, luckily
it's
at
be
home.
really good. And so I think
so
you
too.
know, that prepares them. You have to play Ole Miss. Ole Miss is always going to be a problem for Alabama. Then you have to go to Kyle Field to play Texas A&M. And then you've got to play Tennessee at home, LSU at home. Like when you look at Alabama's schedule, I go, if they go undefeated with their schedule, they're going to be more tested and battle ready to play Georgia than Georgia will Alabama.
It could be. Could be. Now, I do agree with Visor. Monken is going to be... Monken's going to be key to this. The odds are stacked again. If Monken's still stacked against you. Yeah, Kirby, I think you're looking at this the exact way I'm looking at this. Where you acknowledge that you do have a path to three-peat, but it's how rare what we're talking about is, where you don't even almost want to say it. So it's something that needs to be seen. Now, Sport Geek says Ty Simpson won't be good enough to even beat LSU. My man, you haven't even seen him take a snap.
And how do you know Ty Simpson's going to be the quarterback? It could be Jalen Milroe.
0 for 2, my brother.
Hey, listen, they could also get Sam Hartman. I mean, Sam Hartman could hit that portal in the spring and say, I'm coming to Bama, baby.
Sport Geek says Quinn Ewers was a 5-star. Cool story. I mean, that's fair, but by that logic, like every 5-star now gets the same argument, right? Like, I'll give you a 5-star in this class. I think Kermani McLean is as lockdown corner as it gets, but if we're using this form of argumentation, Kermani McLean's a 5-star cool story because I can give you 5-star DBs that didn't work out. Everybody is an individual, right? And they need to be given their own opportunities to produce or not produce. It's not all like linear, where if 1 star doesn't work out, all 5 stars won't work out. I hope not, at least. That'd be tragic, because I'm very much looking forward to what Ty Simpson can do. But Sport Geek, here's where I do agree with you. And I think we just don't know, right? If you're telling me right now, we just don't know what Alabama's quarterbacks are going to be, and that's going to be big for the Crimson Tide, I say 1,000%, 100%. No doubt about that. That's 100% true.
So
Graham Mertz is a 5-star as well. Yeah, I mean, we can talk. Caleb Williams was a 5-star. Bryce Young was a 5-star, but also so was Blake Barnett. But Kermani hasn't played. Quinn Ewers played. But you just said about Ty Simpson, and then you basically, Sport, I'm giving you that because you just used that same line of logic, right? Your basic line of logic here is Ty Simpson won't be good enough to beat LSU. Someone commented he was a 5-star, and then you gave another 5-star quarterback who you don't think is panned. Therefore, it opens up this argumentation to any 5-star ever at any point ever. That's my point here. From a debate standpoint, you've opened up your argumentation to be overly broad as opposed to succinct.
So, do you think trap game for Alabama, they have to go to South Florida? And I know this might be a little bit of a hot take, but we've seen Alabama struggle with teams before they should never struggle with, hence the Citadel. They have to, the week before, they have to play at home against Texas, and then they come home to play Ole Miss. Is that game in between at Tampa, Florida with South Florida a trap game?
I don't think so, but it could be. It could be. Well, Sport, and fairness here, that's because whatever the offense they'd formulated was much more suited for Jalen Milroe because he'd been in the system with Bill O'Brien for a year. And we have a coach on with us right now. He'll tell you the offense Alabama was running was very intricate, and it'd be tough to throw a true freshman. I mean, you were asking Bryce to make NFL reads. Bryce was calling the blocking assignments, and whenever they asked Jalen Milroe to do that, one of my biggest complaints is they didn't really change a lot of the offense for Jalen Milroe. But you're not wrong there. I do grant you that. That's a very fair point. That's a fair point. I don't have anything negative to say about that. That's a very fair point. I do want to get to this though. Before Drew, I let you introduce yourself. Anthony says, does air raid offense work with Nick Saban's philosophy in terms of what he wants out of the OC and offensive scheme? I think it could, but I think that the hires he just made is an indication that they want to go power. And the reason why Sport Geek, I do think the line of logic you're on is completely correct. I just think, if we're running a power scheme, Milroe could fit that very well. So I think they could, but I think that they want to go more power based, and either quarterback fits that. But Sport, I'm very excited to see that. But make no mistake, don't think I was saying Kermani is a dog. That dude, from a technical standpoint, terrifying, is so good. Drew, man,
what's up, guys?
What do you think about this Kevin Steele hire?
Man, and I was listening to you a little bit. Huh?
Got a little feedback.
A little bit of feedback.
Just a smidge of feedback right there.
Are we good?
A little bit better now. Yeah.
A little better? What about now?
It's coming in again.
Hello?
Yeah, you're good now.
All right. Yeah, sorry about that. No, Kevin Steele, I was listening to you earlier on the way home, and I think it's more of a like you said, a chess, not checkers game right now with Alabama, because I think that there's some things behind the scenes that are still in play. And yes, you can go back to Kevin Steele giving up a bunch of points, all this other stuff, but I never seen Kevin Steele make a tackle. So you could argue that it's all on coaching, but a lot of it has to do with the players and the scheme that he's had. And granted, he's been a part of some really good defenses in the past as well, too. You can't just pinpoint a couple seasons and say, oh, here's this, here's that, here's this. He's been a part of some really good staffs and put together some good players on the other side of the ball. So I think right now Alabama had to go put somebody in that position. And I think they're just waiting on Jeremy Pruitt and what the NCAA is doing, whether he's going to hop in as an analyst or if he's going to do the co-DC thing or if another staff member is potentially leaving, so that opens up another spot for a full-time role. There's a lot of things I think that can still happen. And, Kevin Steele's worked with Nick Saban before, so it's nothing new to him. So it'll be interesting to see, but you've got some time. When you're talking about Alabama, you've already established a culture, you've established a foundation, so it's not like a new head coach putting his new coordinators in play like it was with Venables and some other first-year coaches. I mean, it's Nick Saban. So if anybody can do it and anybody can afford the luxury of, being able to wait and see, spring football, stuff like that, who knows? So I don't ever question Nick Saban's decisions because he's got the rings to prove it and we don't. So that's kind of where I stopped the debate there is, hey, it's Nick Saban at the end of the day. He knows what he's doing with his program, and that number one recruiting class is going to look good no matter, I think, whoever the DC is. So, but yeah, I agree, Jeremy, it could potentially be a placeholder for sure.
Man, my man High Top in here. Thanks for joining in, High Top. Guys, if y'all haven't checked out his content, go over there. Check out High Top. Great content. Yeah. I need to get him on the stream. This guy knows Florida football like the back of his hand, and I have some questions and conversations I want to have about the Gators because I am so interested. But here's what I will say, and then I want to move on to some other topics. Drew, I wanted to tell you this, and Austin, you're not wrong, man. You're not wrong.
Yeah, certainly not. I mean, you have to look at that and raise a red flag or two for sure. I'm not just painting over that.
So I don't know if you checked out the video I released earlier today, Drew. I went and did a deep dive into the Miami team this year, and what I found was appalling.
Yeah.
So they gave up 40 points in games against Clemson. Let me see where this is. In games against Clemson, Pitt, Florida State, Duke, and MTSU.
Sure.
In every single one of those games, they lost the time of possession battle except MTSU. Yep. MTSU is inexcusable. You will not find me making a smidge.
Yeah, that was a head scratcher for sure. Yeah.
Is there at some point there's a cliff, right? Yeah, no doubt. Sport, there is a cliff. There's no doubt a cliff. You're not wrong.
Yeah, it's spelled with a K, by the way. Cliff Kingsbury.
So. That's a terrible joke. That's go to timeout. That's a terrible joke. Let that man in Thailand and have his fun. There is sport, but at the same time, it's one of those things where someone has been the exception to the rule for so long that you almost give them the benefit of the doubt, like a Tom Brady, right? Like it's like Max Kellerman every year kept saying, this is the year where Tom Brady falls off.
Yep.
Well, he had to keep repeating it for about 8 years. And then finally he's like, well, okay. His basic argument wasn't wrong. We've never seen a quarterback last in the NFL past this age. All data was correct in Max Kellerman's favor. Yeah. But we were talking about the exception as opposed to the rule. Yep. And that's why you're not wrong, sport. There is a cliff. But I think that's why Saban might get a bit of a pass in this, and we give him the benefit of the doubt.
Well, and I think until you start seeing a pattern of the downfall or the cliff, then that's when you really start coming and bringing it into question. But as of right now, I mean, that train keeps rolling. So
I mean, what if these two hires for Nick Saban don't work out? And what if Nick Saban this season, I know it's a lot of what ifs, but what if Nick Saban this season loses to one of his two coordinators they hasn't lost to yet, Sarkisian or old Joker down at Ole Miss? I can't think of his name at the moment.
Lane. Well, look, so the Texas one is interesting because Texas is early in the season. And Bama's going to be a young team. I'm not saying I think Texas is going to beat Bama, but that would be a loss where, depending on how good Texas is, I'd be intrigued. But I do think you're on to something. Look, this is a big year for Alabama.
Yeah, this could be an interesting year for sure. But the beautiful thing about the Texas game is it's in Tuscaloosa this year.
True.
And anytime you have a new team early in the season, you'd rather have those games at home than as opposed to down at the 40 acres. I'd be a little more worried if it was at Texas again this year. But having that home game and they just don't lose very much in Tuscaloosa. So that's good for you for sure.
Yeah, Daryl, it's a good thing he's not going to be a head coach because my goodness.
No doubt. I don't think we're questioning his coaching ability as a head coach because it's a different animal as we've seen. But
this is a good one. Who's the sleeper defender that's not a freshman that didn't start last year for Bama? Loaded question, but keep thinking on it. Thank you for the $5, Wesley. And this is tough because I have one for you, but it'd be almost a cop-out. It'd be almost a little bit of a cop-out. And the first one I'd say is Deontay Lawson. He didn't start this year. I think he's going to be the guy at inside linebacker, and I think he's going to have a huge season. That's the first one. But like I said, I feel like that's a little bit of a cop-out. Are you talking about Terry and Arnold, Sport Geek? Because if so, that was going to be my next one. I've always said this. I want to get like a little buzzer where I can assign points to people in chat.
Yeah, like pardon the interruption.
I'd be nailing that now for Sport Geek.
We should come up with like a little panel podcast type of deal with
bashing my head against it. Yeah. Arnold is a good one, Sport Geek. Whenever he came in, he's about it. Like he is about it. That is a great one.
Let's say
100 points.
PG. All right. My cliff one, it got negative.
Yeah, negative for you.
I got a mute.
Yeah, you're out of here.
Yeah, that was a good one though.
Right, it was there.
It was creative. Okay.
It was creative.
Yeah, you got
Jeremiah Alexander. That's a good one.
That's a name I've heard. Of course, I haven't really followed the defenses, but that name keeps popping up.
He's a beast.
Yeah, in certain conversations that
Eric,
I heard.
dang it, you beat me to the next one. I was going to say Jahad Campbell. I don't know who's going to start opposite of Deontay Lawson. There's a few guys, but Jahad Campbell came in against Kansas State and really looked good. Really looked good. For defense, practically, has there been a case for... Oh, that's a good one, Anthony. Did he allow... Surtain didn't start straight up, did he?
I don't think he started at the beginning of the year. I could be wrong.
I don't know. I think he was in dime. I think they started him off in packages.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Then by the end of the year, he was a full-time starter. Same with Kool-Aid.
I like him.
Not
just his name, but
yeah, he's good.
The coolest name in college
Malachi
football.
Moore was a freshman from the RIP. That's a good one. Yeah, and I actually highlighted him game 1 against Missouri. He was making some big boy plays.
So Quay Russo and James Smith are enrolled already at Alabama. So they could be ready to start next season.
He asked about people who weren't freshmen. If you're asking me about freshmen, I got a list.
Caleb Downs. I mean, you got
Caleb Downs. Yeah.
You got to throw that one in
Weeks
there.
with the 199. Thank you so much. I was thinking a safety, Christian Story. You know what? That's a name that doesn't get talked about a lot for Alabama. But if you listen to guys in the background, if you listen to guys that watch practice, or you talk to guys that work with some of the people on this team, a lot of positivity about Christian Story. This kid is uber athletic, really hardworking, and if he gets the opportunity, he's got intriguing ability at the safety position, and there's going to be some turnover there. Really excited to see. James Smith, well, look, if we're talking freshman coming in, James Smith, huge win, absolute huge win.
Yeah, if you're talking about Alabama in general, it's like Alabama player, insert name here, you know. It's same song and dance when you have, or a little.
Hey, so Ty, I'm curious. Who do you think is the best interior defensive lineman that you guys took in this class?
In this class?
Ooh,
I think
bet you and I have different takes on this.
You probably think it's Edric Hill.
I think it's either Edric Hill or Jordan Renaud.
Well, I don't know that they'll play Renaud on the interior.
Oh, you don't think they're going to play him on the interior?
Okay. Let me
I really like Edric Hill.
Bama's defense will do some different things. I think that they will use him as more of an edge guy, right? But I don't disagree. Edric Hill is a great answer. I'm not going to push back on you there. As far as this freshman class goes, guys, Caleb Downs is special. That dude is special. Like, he's next level. I'm so happy he was in the class. But I did want to talk about some other big-time recruiting stories. I'm not sure which one of you guys... That'd be me, Anthony. I am the Alabama fan. If you look behind me, there's actually Devon. Oh, right there. That's a plaque from the national championship with Devontae Smith. And other way over there is Mac Jones.
Are we going to talk about Bobby Petrino already beating out Alabama?
Oh God.
No, they just got a commit from Anthony Maddox in the 2024 class. I mean, he's not a super highly rated quarterback, but it was just funny because I know that was a race between Penn State, Bama, and A&M. So,
yeah, that's going to be a good one. But I did want to talk about another big win this weekend. Guys, this is a theme, right? Yeah. I mean, it's becoming a theme. And I know some people are like, oh, well, y'all are talking about Colorado again. It's because they're in the news again, and we all talk about college football news.
Yep.
Isn't...
You cannot, ignore it.
No.
I mean, Deion, like you say, you keep saying, Ty, he moves the needle, and dude is moving the needle.
Yeah, no doubt. Now, PG, you probably know about this well as I do. The kid they just got.
So is it Juwan or Juwan or
Jawan? Jawan Johnson. Guys, okay. let me tell you these stats real quick. Not only the speed. During last season, he had 3,976 yards as a quarterback with 43 touchdowns. He also rushed for 1,284 yards and 17 touchdowns, and they project him to a DB. This cat's different.
Is that all?
That's what he did in terms of offense. Yeah, yeah, like
that's okay.
That's just okay. You know,
production. You know,
more production than I could have ever hoped for in
Yeah.
10 years.
Listen. You want to know how it's big? Because Oklahoma offered this kid, like on January 27th. So the Oklahoma staff obviously saw something in him that they wanted. They just came in a little too late.
Yeah, this kid is good.
Yeah.
Oh, he's going to be a top 100 player by the end of the 2024 cycle.
He could be, yes.
Yeah.
And I think that I do want to get to your comment, Anthony. And sport, good. I'm sorry, Austin. I am sorry about this, but it is true. He was the quarterback that beat Arch's team. Once again, we need to be very clear here. His team beat Arch's team 49-7, but also in the interest of being clear, kid balled out. This dude is different, man. This is a great addition for Coach Prime in Colorado. What's so good about this, guys, LSU was thought to be firmly in the lead for a bit. And then here comes Coach Prime.
It goes into Brian Kelly's backyard, LSU's backyard.
15 minutes away.
Yeah, LSU
That's
was
why it's so big.
LSU was really in bed with him, you know.
15 minutes.
That's why you have to look at a win like this for Colorado and go, "Oh, something's different out there." Because you don't just come into LSU's backyard and take their players.
Not
Bama
a blue
doesn't
chipper.
even do that.
Well, Bama does, but that's because they're Bama. You know what I mean? Like, and even then, it's not easy.
Yeah, it's
Even then,
not often.
easy.
It's not often that you see that this happen.
But goodness gracious! Now, Anthony, you said there are many position players that you were worried about, either at safety, corner, or city you can lose. Are there any that we could lose? Ooh, to the transfer portal.
Y'all already lost enough.
Ricky.
I actually don't know about that, Anthony. That's a good one. Off the top of my head, I don't. Y'all
already lost to Boy Kennedy. How much more can y'all lose?
We could lose more.
I do like Ricky's comment. That's funny. He'll transfer after the first snowstorm in Colorado.
So okay, so talking to I'm totally blanking. The guy I interviewed last night. I can't think of his name at the moment. This is terrible. Jordan Dominic. So I asked about the snowstorm. I asked about the snow in Colorado, and he said it's really not as bad as people make it out to be. He goes, "You just don't have the clothes, and you're not prepared for it."
Well, they're gonna get
so
the
if
clothes,
these recruits will come in prepared, because the staff tries to make it out like it's not that bad, and then they get there and it's colder, and then they don't have the right clothes. So if the staff can get them their, the right information to get the right amount of clothes, or give them some gear when they get on campus, I think they'll be fine.
They'll get some North Face NIL deals up there.
Well, here's what I've always said: you can do something about being cold. When it's cold, you go put on a sweatshirt. When I was growing up, working on the horse ranch, it'd be 111 degrees in North Texas in the shade. God himself can't come help you.
Nobody would rather be hot than cold.
I'm the opposite.
No, because you can only take so many clothes off before it becomes illegal.
Hey.
Well, out there on the ranch, I didn't have to worry about
that.
Yeah,
but on the football field,
I had to worry about the rattlesnakes.
It's all right.
I wasn't stripping down
fans and AC
rattlesnakes.
and all that. You're good.
And
Weston, that is why Wyoming does not have a good football program.
Hey, they have produced some good players, though.
They have.
Wesley says we have 89 scholarship, at least 4 more. Yeah, there'll be more leaving, Wesley. That's just the nature. And especially after the springtime. One thing I've always said, a lot is made about the first transfer portal window, and deservedly so, but it's the second one, in my opinion, that's where you really need to watch.
It's going, and I've said it like ad nauseum, how excited I am just as a whole for the spring transfer portal after spring football is all said and done and guys are moving around. It's going to be, you think this one was crazy, buckle up, because this one's going to be
wild,
intense. I would be looking, and I think PG said it earlier, watch out for Sam Hartman.
That'd be wild. Yeah. That'd be wild.
I'm not saying he'd go to Bama, but he may, his mindset now maybe. And this is just pure speculation. This is nothing I've, been in touch with or anything. Don't know any sources, but he may just test the waters up there and be like, all right, I'm just going to give it a shot because, I committed here and see how the spring goes. And then, maybe try my luck elsewhere. But it's definitely something that intriguing,
I want to hit this PG, I think you want to hit it as well. I don't think that he's going to be heading out anywhere defined soon, Geek, but I don't think it'll be soon as our conventional way of thinking about it. Meaning, I think he's there for at the very least 3 years.
The only way Prime leaves after one season is if he goes out there and wins 11 games this season, Florida State goes out there and wins 7.
If he goes out there and does something like that, he'll get calls.
Yeah, because Florida State will literally call him up and say, if you want this job, it's yours.
If they win 7 or 8 games, Norvell will still have the job. So
they will hire Deion Sanders while Mike Norvell is still the head coach and then fire Mike Norvell if he goes out there and wins 11 games. I mean, he's not
going to win 11 games, so let's just say that.
That'd be a stretch, but I do think he will have this team as much improved. Sport, you and I think we've commented back and forth on this.
You can definitely improve off of 1 in 10.
Yeah.
Well, I think their ceiling is 9 games. I think that's their ceiling. I think they're probably in that 6 to 7 win range, but their floor I think is 4.
Sure, and
I think that's fair.
That's a great improvement from one win.
Well, because when you look at their schedule, they can go out there. They're playing a UCLA team that they're going to either have a true freshman quarterback. I mean, I don't know what this UCLA team is going to look like. They got Oregon State, Washington State, Stanford. You have USC at home, which, I mean, who knows? You've got TCU, Nebraska, and Colorado State.
Here's the big thing
right there.
That is the big thing for Colorado is I want to see how they go out and they compete, even in the losses. If they get blown out and they're just, not looking like they're putting anything together, that's one thing. But if they're in there like Nebraska's been in the last few years, something like that,
great one.
How competitive they've been in close wins, close losses like Oklahoma was in this year. They go out and they're competitive. They win 5-6 games, something like that, 4 games. Even then, there's definitely a bright spot. You can see progression. But if they go out there and they just get freaking put on their backs and they're getting blown out, then, obviously you're not going to fire Deion after 1 year, but you're going to start saying, all right, well, the gap is bigger than we thought. So it'll be interesting to see how they compete.
I could see that, but really outside of the USC game, I see them almost winning all their games at home, just because with the elevation change and everything, and the way Sean Lewis is going to make those defenses run. Like that's the reason why I put an asterisk next to the USC games. I'm like, how's that speed D going to work with Deion Sanders and Sean Lewis' high-powered offense?
Yeah, but you don't know that because they've never ran the offense together or had their guys on the field. Lincoln Riley, and I'll go ahead and say it right now. Lincoln Riley is going to blow the doors off of Colorado this year.
You want to put a bet on this?
Yep, I will.
All right. Well, we're gonna make an off-screen bet, guys, because I don't think they're gonna get blown out. I think that game's gonna be locked.
No, I said Lincoln Riley's offense will blow the doors off of his defense.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
I really like the secondary. I really like the secondary for Colorado, and Caleb Williams did not do well when he saw the 2 high safety look. And if they do something like that to them with Travis Hunter and Cormani McLean, who I think could play that.
These guys have not played Division I football yet.
High
level Division I football. I mean, you're the coach. You tell me. Oh wait, I'm the coach. That's right.
No, I mean, I just look at the Pac-12, and they're the worst Power 5 conference. They couldn't have made a better move.
These guys are stepping up from HBC to big boy football.
Okay, but they've got guys that have came from SEC and the ACC and the Big Ten that can come in there and make a difference. I mean, Jordan Dominic for one of them. Like we just talked about him, and we talked about how big of a get that was for Colorado on the edge. I mean,
sure, that guy. You're talking about guys that you're piecing together that have never played with each other.
I think you'll be surprised.
Continuity. I hope I am, but continuity and chemistry matter in football.
Because Colorado last year, if you guys remember, in the first half, I mean, they were hanging with USC in the first half. It was the second half that USC kind of started beating the doors off Colorado. That's why I look at this game and I go, if you watched Colorado last year at all in any of their games, their first quarter, maybe mid second quarter, they were able to hang in with a lot of teams, and then they started getting the doors blown off. I think with the significant talent improvement, even though you're hodgepodging a bunch of players together, Lincoln Riley went and did it. Who's to say Deion Sanders can't do it?
Yeah, but you're also talking about Lincoln Riley, who has been at the Division I level and understands how to coach it. I'm not saying Deion Sanders is a bad coach. He's not been there yet. He's got some.
Sean Lewis's offense and what they were doing.
Yeah, Sean Lewis
Jackson
played
State is very
was that
similar.
coach at Kent State as well.
Yeah, but that Kent State offense gave a lot of people problems.
Sure did.
I mean, look at what it did to Georgia. And here's the thing. That Sean Lewis offense and what they were doing down at Jackson State was very similar. And that's why I think Colorado on the offensive side of the ball, it could be very interesting. Like that could keep them in games. But then you go and you look at teams like, I think running the ball on Colorado will be probably your most success, especially if you have a deep running back room. I think passing is going to be interesting. I'm curious to see what the passing game looks like on Colorado's defense. Because if Colorado can lock down the passing game in the Pac-12,
sure, but it comes down to the trenches.
I mean, they've got guys that can fight on the trenches on the defense
We don't
side
know
of the
that
ball.
yet.
No, I do know that because I've seen some of these
You've
boys
seen them all
play.
play together at Colorado already.
I haven't seen them all play together at Colorado, but I
Exactly.
have seen the
Thank
guys
you.
play across college football.
Appreciate it.
And listen, they got some good ones.
They do, but they all have to gel together.
Here's what I will say, though. More important to me than the gelling, I look at some of the coaching in that, right? They brought over that defensive coordinator from Jackson State, and I get it. There'll be a jump. That Jackson State defense was stingy. Like, I get it, but everything was relative. Not only do they get him, they get Zimmer. And then this is just
Willie
so
Taggart
well
Jr.,
coached.
Nick
Yeah.
Williams, Kevin Mathis,
Guys
Coach
that
Kelly.
Guys
yeah.
that have won at the Division I level, right? Power 5.
Nick Williams has been causing people problems on the defensive line for a long time at Texas A&M.
And Georgia. I mean, even when he was an analyst at Georgia, you listen to the people that talk about him. He's going to be a star.
And Nick Williams is going to go out there and make tackles, right?
I think he's going to have those boys ready to play.
We'll see.
38. How is Trav and Cremani not ready? Could start. I'm confused. 38. If you could reword that, I think I'm just not getting that. Yeah, I think
Cormani
if you
is
could
ready.
reword
I think
that.
Cormani in the Pac-12 could play.
I think both Cremani and Travis are ready. Yes,
Now-
if you could reword
now,
that. Maybe I
think
said
if you-
something.
If you put Cormani in the SEC, I think he has to sit a year. But in the Pac-12, I think he's could come out and
Well,
play right away.
I even kind of disagreed with you there, PG. You remember whenever you were asking me, hey, do you think Bama could get Kermani? And you were like, I don't know if they could because I think Kermani would sit. I was like, man, he's so good. He might not. He's that good. He is that good. So I might have said something wrong earlier, 38, Matt. So if you could reword that, and if I did, that's 100% my fault.
I just can't wait till Colorado gets to play Utah, and then you'll see what I'm talking about.
No, I think that Utah game is going to be tough but I mean, I don't know. I just look at their schedule. I mean, you have at Washington State, Arizona, Oregon State, at UCLA, Stanford, at Arizona State,
Sure.
Colorado State, Nebraska, TCU.
It sets up pretty
Like
good
if
for
their
them
first
in their
three
first
games,
year.
they're 3-0.
Don't get me wrong, but Power 5 speed is Power 5 speed. And it's a jump for a lot of these guys.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna put this out. I'm gonna go through here and I'm just gonna give you some of their key transfers they got. They got a almost 5-star linebacker in DeMoy Kennedy from Alabama.
Number 38 in the nation coming
How
out.
long
from
did
his-
he-
See,
how much-
he
how
can
much
spit
did he
it out
play?
for you. They got Breedlove from Ole Miss, an SEC player.
Did he play? Did he start?
He was hurt, I think, wasn't he?
All right.
Breedlove, he had some experience.
Yeah.
He got
You
a
had
lot of
Jordan
snaps,
Dominic from Arkansas. 16 and a half sacks and 27 tackles for loss in his career so far.
Over
Let's see
4
here.
years.
You have outside of all these Jackson State players that they're bringing back over. I mean, of course, you got to put Travis Hunter in there because that's a game changer. Sador. I'm gonna get
Seydou
this wrong.
Traore, that
Yep.
dude is a beast. That dude's
everybody
gonna
wanted
be a
him.
problem.
You got Yusuf from Florida, the offensive
Yusuf
lineman.
Murga.
Yep.
Yeah.
Vontae Bentley from Clemson, Miles Slusher from Arkansas. I mean, do I
Get
need to
outta
keep going?
here.
Savion Washington, one of the
Slusher.
highest rated offensive tackles. Oh, Kavase Smoke from Kentucky.
I was more healthy than Miles Slusher the last 4 years.
Kavase Smoke from Kentucky. I mean, a power running back. You've got Jimmy Horn
Smoke's a
Jr.,
nice one,
one of the most explosive wide receivers this year from USF. I mean, when you look up and down, like they've got talent. If they can just put it together, this team could go out there and easily win.
And that's the big question mark.
It is, but at the same time, I think that there are certain ways where you can hit the ground running, and the transfer portal allows you to kind of take some of the gelling out of the equation. Now, I don't think it's a long-term solution, but I think we can look at a team like Michigan State, for instance, when Mel Tucker first got there, utilizing the transfer portal where they hit the ground running. Now, the difference is I don't think Mel Tucker transitioned well after that first year. And I think Coach Prime is much more fit to transition successfully because of his ability to recruit. But I do think this Colorado team, they're going to be
a problem.
Wildly fun to watch.
Well, and the thing is, they bring over Mike Zimmer and everybody. Like, I look at all the defensive players they brought over from Jackson State. And I mean, if they can even replicate half the success they had at Jackson State, that's 6 wins for you at Colorado.
Well, if they go 6 wins this year, I know there will be people on social media that say, oh, look, they only won 6 wins. That will be a big turnaround. People don't realize how tough it is in college football, but I think they've made moves to allow themselves to be set up for success.
And being in the Pac-12 doesn't hurt either. So
okay, well, here's the thing, though.
The
Colorado is going to knock off a big team this year. I don't know if it's going to be at TCU, if it's going to be a Big Ten team in Nebraska, USC, but they're going to knock somebody off this year.
TCU is not going to be considered a big team this year.
I mean, they were just in the college football playoffs.
And what happened?
I mean, yeah, they got smoked, but they were still one of the best teams in the country. And if you look at what they had in the transfer portal, I mean, you could make an argument that TCU had one of the best transfer portal classes. I mean, they got a lot of talent out of the transfer portal.
I think that they are going to upset a big name team next year. I'm just interested to who. Now, I'm going to
I hope it's USC.
I'm going to explore this conversation much deeper after the spring game, because at that point I'm going to have a deeper understanding. But I do lean, PG. I must admit, I do lean a little bit more with you, because I just think that the transfer portal has allowed for teams to hit the ground running a little bit more. Anthony, let me go find it. You said panel question to realignment. In your opinion, which conference do you think dissolves first? ACC, Big 12, or Pac-12?
Pac-12. I think Brett Yormark is going to heavily go after Colorado and Utah, and then pick up Arizona State and Arizona with them.
The H family. Tell me who TCU's returning that's big time. I'll wait.
Chandler Morris.
Tell me who TCU's returning that's big time. I'll wait.
I think Chandler Morris can clear that one, because
Chandler Morris was the starting quarterback at the beginning of the season.
And
I mean, he got hurt, but that's football.
Who's going to be your big play receiver outside?
Oh, they still have a lot of wide receiver talent.
Yeah. Don't they still have Darius Davis?
Darius Davis. Yeah, they still have.
They don't have
Quentin Johnson.
Johnston.
I mean, you don't have to have Quentin Johnston, because Darius Davis was really good last year. Hold on. Let's just look
Quentin Johnston wasn't that good last year.
Receiving. Tay Barber, 613 yards. Darius Davis, 531 yards. Savion Williams, 392. They're going to have people step up in this wide receiver.
But what about
then they got JoJo Earl.
You're replacing 9 starters.
That's going to be tough for TCU.
Okay, so they got JoJo Earl on the wide receiver. Didn't they get Christian O'Leary?
They didn't get Leary. Now, this is where I do agree, Chris. I disagree offensively. I think TCU offensively
they should be okay.
Defensively, I do agree with you. They had a veteran defense. They relied on a veteran defense.
That's what won them those games last year.
I still think it's a big team. I will disagree with you, because I do think I get it. You're not wrong. They got smoked, but they still made it to the dance. And one thing I've always talked about is it's still something to make it to the dance. It is very difficult. They made it there. So they're still going to be riding a high. I'll consider them a big team, but even sport agrees with you about TCU not being the same team. That defense is going to be really fun to watch what they do.
Yeah, but they upgraded at the running back position by getting Trey Sanders. If Trey Sanders is able to stay healthy, that's a huge upgrade. They got Tommy Prockermeyer on the offensive line.
If he can stay healthy, we don't know that. That's the variable in all of this.
Yeah, I'm interested.
If there's any guy in the nation that I'm rooting hard for, it's Trey Sanders.
Yeah, I just look at TCU and what they took out of the portal, and again what they have back on the offensive side of the ball. I think TCU is going to be fine, and if they go in there and they lose to Colorado in the first game of the season at home, that's a pretty big upset. I mean, I don't care how you look at it. That's an upset.
So we got 2 people on the panel who think Colorado is due for a big year, and one person who, guys, he might think that it's not going to be as instant, but we got to understand. This is coming from a coach's perspective, who's a person who's, you got to show me for me to believe it. And in fairness in football, that's not bad logic.
And you're putting the right things together. No, I'm not dissing on Deion and what they're doing there. They're doing the right things, but
no doubt
you could do all the right things and end up like Oklahoma was this year.
I mean, you could. You're right. But I think the difference between Deion Sanders and Brent Venables taking over the programs in the first year is Brent Venables came in late in the transfer portal cycle.
Sure, but he also
Deion came in right before
in the country.
But here's the thing, though. Deion Sanders came in right before it opened, having an opportunity to be able to go in there and get best fit, not best available. And I think that's what hurt BV this year was he had to take best available.
Sure.
I think
but
that's
you also
going to help.
still had a top 10 roster coming back.
Yeah, but look at who you had to play this season.
Absolutely. I'm not dissing that, but I mean, there's, pros and cons to everything.
I just think I think Deion will have a very successful first season, and I'm not gonna lie, I will be rooting so hard in Norman at the Palace for.
Yeah,
I really hope. I really hope if
just,
Colorado is blowing them out that they pull that Colorado game up on the screen somewhere.
And for me, it's the same way with OU. Like you don't ever see me we did a Big 12 schedule release a couple of days ago. It's been about a week or so whenever it came out. And I said, I think that Oklahoma has the opportunity to get to the Big 12 championship, but at the same time, I'm not comfortable making a prediction saying 10 wins, 9 wins. I don't know. Ask me after our first.
Okay, well, I'm with you. I'm not comfortable saying OU is going to go win 9 games, but I think they have to go win 9 or 10 games because this schedule.
Absolutely.
I mean, when you talk about a favorable schedule,
you have to go out and make a drastic improvement from last year.
I mean, you're talking 3 straight wins. They should have 3 straight wins to start the season. Cincinnati, I feel like because of the turnover.
You have to start
talked about it. So let's just go ahead and do an OU breakdown because somebody asked about it.
Your non-con
Cincinnati should be a fairly winnable game because they lose Luke Fickell. They lose a lot of talent. That should be 4-0. Iowa State, I mean, I like Hunter Deckers, but it's in Norman. I'm going to give OU the advantage every time in Norman. That's 5-0 going into Texas. Let's say OU drops to Texas because I just think Texas is going to be that good this year and it's a toss-up game every year. You still have UCF, Kansas, and at Oklahoma, or 2 away games, Kansas, Oklahoma State, and UCF. There should be 3 more wins for Oklahoma. That puts them at 8-1 at that point.
The barometer is going to be like you just said, starting off that conference schedule because last year, same song and dance. We were freaking pumped up and we were like, oh man, we just kicked the shit out of Nebraska. Like, sorry, my language, but we were all high on it. And I was too. I'm like, man, this could be potentially a good season. And then we just kind of went, phew. So that's going to be it. Those first.
No, I get it. But you talk about the
huge.
West Virginia game, you add that in there. Those are their 9 winnable games.
Texas
but
Tech
people are overlooking the TCU game because TCU, my goodness, before they have to play Oklahoma, I don't know if you guys have looked at their schedule, but it's brutal. They have to play Baylor, Texas, at Tech, at Kansas State, and BYU. 5 straight games before they play Oklahoma. There's a good chance by the end of the season going on Black Friday that they've got on a short week.
TCU got they got a gauntlet there for sure.
If Oklahoma does not win 9 or 10 games this season, it's a disappointment.
If we don't win, I would say 8 games, at least 8 games, and then you've got a couple there that you can win. But yeah, if you're not at 8 games,
8 games with the Texas win.
Yep.
Well, boys, before we get out of here this evening, I did want to do winners and losers for this offseason.
Wisconsin.
Now, I want to go ahead and disqualify one team because it's obvious, right? It's too easy. Colorado's disqualified. Obviously, they're in the winning category. That's way too easy of an answer. We're watching what they're doing recruiting. They have a top transfer portal class. That's. I'll go ahead and start with the winner. I'll take another decently easy one, Nebraska. That's a fan base that has been down in the dumps for a while, and Matt Rule is giving them some hope. Now, guys, how cool is it And H family, I do agree with you, but that's why I had to disqualify them. It was too easy, right? I think that's fair. It was so easy in the obvious. But how cool is it that we're seeing Colorado and Nebraska get this life in the same year? You're talking about a historic rivalry that if that can come back, college football will be better for it. College football will be better for it. Now, my loser, PG, I'm so sorry. It's Oklahoma State.
Why you apologize to PG?
Yeah, don't apologize to me. I'm not an
no,
OSU fan.
No. Because I that might have been his. That could have been his.
Wasn't.
Ooh, love it.
I've got
My
a good
loser's
loser.
Oklahoma State.
Oh.
Guys, they are losing everything, and I haven't checked, but they might have just lost the kitchen sink. I get Gundy has done more with less, but man, it's getting kind of crucial at Oklahoma State. They've got to have something this year. This is the cherry on top. You had a quarterback in Spencer Sanders who is ingrained into the history books of Oklahoma State choose to go and compete at Ole Miss against Jackson Dart and the former 5-star quarterback that just transferred in instead of staying at Oklahoma State.
Stomping out my freaking flame.
That's got to be my loser of the offseason. So winner, Nebraska. Loser has got to be Oklahoma State. Once again, for those of you maybe Colorado's disqualified. They're obviously a winner. They're probably the biggest winner of the offseason. Not probably, they are in terms of offseason acquisition. So, boom. PG, what are you thinking, man?
So I'm going to start with my loser because I know that one shocked you. It's actually Ole Miss. 24 outbound portal.
Ooh, love it. Yeah, that's big. 24.
They're more of a winner.
I love it.
It's a winner in my book. But no,
it's a winner in my book. Yeah, you're 100% right.
Winner, and just because of the quarterback.
I actually go back and forth on these two as the winner because I really love what Wisconsin did in the transfer portal. Literally, like they said, we're still going to be good at defense, but we're going to go out there. We're going to get 2 or 3 quarterbacks. We're going to go get some wide receivers, and we're going to bolster this offense. Bryson Green, the wide receiver from Oklahoma State, CJ Williams, and Quincy Burrows, USC and Cincinnati. They got Braden Locke, the quarterback from Mississippi State. They got Nick Evers from Oklahoma, Tanner Mordecai, who, I mean, I would have thought at one point could have been in Heisman contention if he would have been able to keep up what he was doing. I mean, I look at what Wisconsin took out of the portal and I go, that's impressive. But a team that actually nobody would really look at out of the transfer portal is Kansas. So Kansas got a former 5-star offensive lineman out of the portal. They've got Demarius McGee from LSU, a 4-star cornerback. They got Dylan McDuffie from Georgia Tech, who I thought was okay. Spencer Lovell, another offensive tackle out of California. Like, when you look at Kansas, this is how Lance Leipold has built this program and tried to turn it around. It's through a transfer portal. They now have, is it 89 scholarship players for the first time ever?
Yeah.
Or no, not
time
the first time ever. First time in a long time. First time in a long
while.
time. That's a huge improvement for Kansas. Huge. When you talk about having a full scholarship roster. It might go underrated, but I think that's a huge winner in of itself.
Yeah, good ones.
I hope
Drew,
I didn't take that
man?
from you, Drew.
No, you did. Ty already stole all mine, so it's fine. It's all good.
It's another one that could be.
Florida State is my winner, so perfect timing because not only do you have your starting quarterback coming back, your running back, your big wide receivers, stuff like that, but you also have a big-time defensive lineman from Western Michigan who had like 12 and a half sacks last year, stuff like that. And then Deuce Cypress, transfer from Virginia he was a big-time starting safety corner for Virginia back there and everything. And then what Norvell has done at Florida State has been awesome with the recruiting classes, stuff like that. He's landed some big time targets. And then my loser, and I always love to rag on them, but Arkansas and what they did in the portal. Arkansas, one. Texas A&M is like a tie for losers there because it was a mass exodus in the transfer portal for both schools. But I think it hurt Arkansas a little more because of the people they lost and the people that also left due to the draft, stuff like that as well. So KJ Jefferson is going to have to come
Pool.
up with some new one. But they do have Rocket Sanders coming back in the backfield, so can't overlook that. But, yeah, the transfer portal hit them and the Aggies pretty hard. So 1A, 1B for losers are Arkansas and A&M.
Well, you know what's interesting, PG, I'll throw this out there real quick, then throw it to you. Catalan is someone who, if you talk to the Arkansas faithful, you might get some tell you, oh, such a big loss. You might get some tell you, well, he was hurt all last season, so it was a loss, yes, but one that we didn't feel because but it's not just there. I think Bumper Pool's gone because I think he used up his last year of eligibility. Drew Sanders is gone. And he had a great year with
That's
Arkansas.
a lot of tackles right there.
That's a lot of tackles. And then Catalan, if healthy, I mean, guys, we want to talk about some of the biggest transfer portal wins. If Catalan is healthy, he has got to be up on your list.
Well,
whether he's number one or not, I don't know.
Not only what he did on the field, but his leadership in the locker room. I have a lot of friends that are over at Arkansas fans, stuff like that. And what he did just from a leadership standpoint and the glue in the locker room is something they're going to miss a lot too. So, yeah, that's a huge loss for them in both respects, on the field and then just what he done off the field. As a veteran leadership presence was huge. So,
PG, I'll throw it to you, and then we're gonna go ahead and call it an evening.
Yes, I've got two. So, another underrated transfer portal class I think a lot of people may be overlooking because it just wasn't as big as it was last year is the USC one, because they replaced with Marshawn Lloyd at the running back position. And then they've got Ethan White on the offensive line, Anthony Lucas on the defensive line. You do lose CJ Williams at the wide receiver, but I think they're good there. But an interesting team, and I thought I was curious nobody mentioned this, I either as a loser or a winner, because honestly I think it kind of evens out with what they lost and what they got, is LSU.
Yeah.
That's an interesting one. Yeah, that's a good one.
I don't think they're a winner, but they're also not a loser. They're like right in the middle, even though they hold the number one transfer portal class.
Yeah, that's an interesting conversation to be had. I think what helps LSU is going into next year, at least, not only did they return Daniels, but we saw that backup quarterback who at the very least is going to push Daniels even more now, because it's one thing when you're at practice and you got the backup quarterback who's balling out.
Not a game,
but practice. It's a totally different thing when national television gets to see that backup quarterback come in there and throw and look real good doing it. And then all of a sudden the pressure's on.
Hank, yes, sir. That's another one.
Arizona State, that's a good one.
That's a good one.
Yeah, but I'm going to be curious to see. I want to see what Arizona State does in the second round of the train. I think they're one of those teams that they still have a lot they need to take.
That's fair. I think that's more than fair.
I think Oregon State did pretty decent in the portal.
DJU was such a good addition.
Huh?
DJU was such a good addition.
Yeah, for what they're doing out there. Yeah, I mean, I think he fits decent out there. So I'm not going to call them a winner. I'll call them a
intrigue.
Intrigue. Yeah. So.
Well, here's the last comment I'll put out. And
improved.
Everybody. Yeah. Arizona State, Hank, the coaching moves they've made.
Yeah. In and of itself. Yeah.
Brian Carrington and Samples.
It's not going to matter if they can't recruit their own state.
You're not wrong, but I also think that those two guys are guys that are going to be able to recruit their own state. But you're certainly not wrong.
Listen, I will believe it when I see it, because
That's
they
fair.
have been historically bad at
I believe it when I see it. Only certain things, though, right?
That's
Only
the beauty of it. That's the
Only
beauty
certain.
of it.
Pick and choose your beliefs.
They have Dylan Raiola, who they could still try to get in the race for. I know it looks like it's leaning heavy Georgia, USC, Nebraska, but listen, that race ain't over.
No, there's nothing but time and opportunity.
Exactly. And then you got Elijah Rushing, one of the top edge rushers in this class, 5-star edge rusher. So listen, if they can go out there and make a splash in their state, I will believe
Colorado, Arizona State to the Big 12.
It'd be fun.
That'd be fun.
If
Colorado, Arizona State, Arizona, Utah.
Well, if the Big 12 could add in Colorado and Nebraska again, slam dunk.
Yeah.
If you're Brett Yormark,
we're just throwing out.
We're just
nothing here. We're just.
If you're Brett Yormark, you have to go to your media right deal and say, hey, if we can get Colorado and these other three teams, how much money will you give us? And then go to Colorado and say, we're going to give you that plus $10 million to come to our conference.
Well, Eric, Yeah, but not only that, their recruiting class was pretty good as well, too.
No, Eric, you got a point. No doubt about it.
Yep.
Well, gentlemen, before we get out of here, PG, Drew, let the people know where they can find all your great content. I guess we'll start PG and then go to Drew.
Yeah, y'all can find me the PG Show, all one word, on Google, Apple, Spotify for podcast, or on YouTube. Listen, we have a lot of great interviews.
Yeah, you do.
I'm kind of realizing that's where I thrive at. So we're going to have a specific 2024 recruit announce his top school list. Now, mind you, this guy could be a 5-star by the end of the cycle. Like, he's right there.
Oh.
We're going to announce his top school list as well through Hayes Fawcett, but he's also going to talk about why those schools are on his top schools.
Heck yeah.
So we're going to deep dive and break that down. So you guys need to keep your noties on and check that one out. But we also got one for all you Colorado fans with Jordan Dominic. We finally got that one recorded, and that one was a lot of fun. You guys got to go check that one out.
Yeah, that one was awesome.
Noties. I like that.
Noties. Nodie gang.
Well,
got to keep it young and hip.
Yeah, fresh. No, PG does put out some great stuff, and I know we banter back and forth, but I love PG. I love his takes. I love his knowledge and just his ability to go out there and find these great interviews and all his stuff with recruiting. Great stuff. So go check out his channel. But for me, pretty busy in the podcast scene now with me and Zach on the Under Official Review podcast. We're bringing out new content. Our Super Bowl preview will be out this week coming up, so that'll be pretty good. And then you can also find me on the Anything OU podcast with my boy Christian. We've got the Chris Plank video for softball coming up, and then the Deshaun White interview as well, and then two big interviews here within a month or so. I won't spill that one, but we definitely have one that I think everybody would love to
listen. We're not going to spill it, but did you land it?
See.
Have you laid? Oh yeah, let's go.
So, yes.
Y'all are going to want to tune in for that one.
You're going to perk the ears up for this and get the noties on for this one.
Randy, dang it, man! Let me have my evening of peace, man. Don't
be throwing out like Auburn by 40 or any of that stuff. Just let it be.
God, Randy,
like the Beatles say, let it be.
Randy, come on,
Randy. But yeah, you can find us on all the platforms: YouTube, Spotify, Twitter, all that good stuff. I like to argue, so like PG, you can ruffle me up. My latest argument right now is Andrew Jones for the Hall of Fame and for the Baseball Hall of Fame, because I'm a huge Braves fan. So I'm in his corner for the Hall of Fame, but that's a different story. So.
Jeez. Yeah, well, that's what makes this fun. Guys, thank y'all so much for tuning in. Y'all are really what allows this show to be as fun as it is for all of us because of the interaction and everything, and makes this a little bit unique, what we're able to do. But thank you for tuning in. We'll be back Friday, 5:30. Until then, you already know, between me and the guys in front of me, we're going to be putting out a bunch of content, keeping all of your football news up to date this week. Until then, we'll see you live again Friday, 5:30. Have a good evening. That's it. See ya.
Blues on, baby.